Local retail sales value continues a downward trend for the 15th consecutive month. Rodrigo Duterte is sworn in as president of the Philippines. And former London Mayor Boris Johnson won't join the race for British Prime Minister. Good evening and welcome. Local retail sales in May slumped for the 15th month in a row, according to the latest government figures. Tourist figures also fell last month, mostly due to a drop in mainland tourists. Caleb Long has more.
Last month's retail sales were estimated at $35.7 billion, down 8.4% compared to the same period last year. This is the 15th consecutive month of plunging retail sales performance, according to figures released by the Census and Statistics Department. Sales of valuable items such as jewelry and watches dropped by almost 19%, while electrical goods and photography equipment fell more than 25%. On the bright side, sales of commodities in supermarkets were up 1.5%, while food, alcohol, and tobacco sales rose more than 3%. Meanwhile, almost 4.5 million tourists visited Hong Kong last month. The slump is mainly due to a drop in mainland visitors, down more than 8% compared to a year ago. However, the number of non-mainland China tourists visiting the territory last month is roughly the same year on year.
I think English speaking was beneficial for us. We came to do the local markets and Victoria's Peak and Hong Kong Disneyland.
Commerce Secretary Greg So hopes more retail promotions will help boost local consumption as a global economic slump looms.
The global economic situation has affected the willingness to in terms of spending, and we see that Brexit will introduce further uncertainty into the global economic climate.
With a drop in shopping mainland tourists, some businesses have decided to shift their target market back to local. This jeweler says he aims to raise the ratio of his local customers from the current 10 to 15% to at least 30%. That compares to a decade ago when about half his sales were made to locals. However, it will be a delicate balancing act, as he says he has to slash prices to attract the locals. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Meanwhile, a tour guide has been sentenced to 5 months in prison for assaulting a mainland tourist outside a Hong Kong jewelry store last year. The visitor later died. Diane Till reports.
The case happened in October last year. Mainland tourist Miao Chun-chi and a fellow female tour group member got into an argument with their tour leader and tour guide over shopping issues at a Hong Kong jewelry store. Miao was then attacked and died a day later. Forensic pathologists confirmed the 54-year-old had died of a heart attack. Tour guide Ricky Wu, aged 44, was first charged with manslaughter, but that was scaled down later to 2 counts of common assault. At Kowloon City Magistracy today, the defense said in mitigation that everyone was heated from the quarreling, so it was only natural that the defendant, as a tour guide, intervened. The lawyer said Wu lost control and took inappropriate action, but that he was not the instigator. But Magistrate Eric Zheng criticized Wu for spinning lies in trying to escape punishment, noting that his testimonies contradicted each other. Wu first claimed he kicked the man on the spur of the moment because the squabbling was affecting others who were shopping. But in court, he changed his reasoning to self-defense. The magistrate stressed the seriousness of the case. He said Wu's refusal to plead guilty shows he feels no remorse and that his action has harmed Hong Kong's reputation. The magistrate sentenced Wu to 5 months in jail but granted him $200,000 bail pending an appeal. The mainland tour leader involved earlier pleaded guilty to 4 counts of common assault and was given a 3-month jail term. He is also out on bail pending an appeal. Diane To, TVB News.
The head of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office says pan-Democrats should respect the central government's authority and not meddle in mainland affairs. But in a somewhat conciliatory tone, Wang Guangya said there will be more meetings between Beijing and pan-democratic lawmakers. Adam Xu has more.
In a magazine interview, Wang Guangya refutes claims that the central government is tightening its grip on Hong Kong. The head of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office admits that managing a region with a different social, economic and legal system is a challenge. He insists Beijing has been dealing with Hong Kong with maximum patience and restraint during the Occupy protests in 2014. Wang says the central government will continue to implement the one country, two systems principle over the long term. But he accuses certain pan-democrats of trying to bring about political changes on the mainland in breach of one country, two systems. Pan-democrats hit back.
If Mr. Wang is referring to, for example, the Causeway Bay booksellers saga, or things like the candlelight vigil observed at the Victoria Park for 27 years on the 4th of June, then I can tell Mr. Wang that that is because all these incidents have a Hong Kong nexus or perspective.
It is not people, the pan-democrat in Hong Kong, damaging the system in the mainland China, but that it is the mainland authority which doesn't respect the wishes of Hong Kong people, and that they didn't honor what they promised in the Basic Law by respecting Hong Kong and let us govern Hong Kong.
In an apparently softer note, however, Wang said the majority of pan-democrats are patriotic, and as members of the establishment, they should respect the central government's authority. Wang also stressed it's impossible for Beijing not to listen to their views because they represent many people here in Hong Kong. Wang also said Beijing will actively seek to solve mainland-related problems for pan-democrats. Asked whether that means they'll soon be able to travel to mainland freely, Leung said he hadn't heard of any progress over the issue. Adam Xu, TVB News.
Latest government figures show property prices bounced back for the second month in a row. But some analysts say the upward trend is only temporary and that prices are in for more declines. Winna Wong with more.
The Rating and Valuation Department has just released property market statistics for May. For the second month in a row, prices have risen. The overall price index for private homes was 275.5. That's up 0.7% from April, but down more than 7% year on year. All types of units saw month-on-month increases, but it was particularly obvious for larger flats. Prices of those more than 1,076 square feet rose by about 1%. However, some analysts believe the rebound in prices is only temporary. They say prices may fall up to 5% during the second half of this year. According to property analyst Buggle Lau, the rate of increases in May eased compared with the month before. Lau said with an influx of first-hand residential properties, the second-hand market will face tough competition, which puts pressure on overall home prices in the second half of the year. Others point out other factors to watch out for that could affect prices, such as interest rates and the impact of Brexit. Rents, meanwhile, are also heading north. The home rental index for May rose to 164.1, snapping a 7-month downtrend. Winna Wong, TVB News.
A medical building in a U.S. Air Force base near Washington is under lockdown with the report of an active shooter. The entire Joint Andrews base had initially been on lockdown, with personnel and people in the surrounding Maryland suburbs told to stay inside. But a tweet from the base said the all-clear was given, except for the medical building. The base did not say why that building is still under lockdown. Joint Base Andrews is the military facility where the U.S. presidential jet Air Force One is based. Rodrigo Duterte has been sworn in as the 16th president of the Philippines. The former provincial city mayor began his 6-year term with more promises to crush crime. But several countries are waiting to see what changes he has in store for Philippine foreign policy.
I, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
In one of Asia's liveliest democracies, 71-year-old Rodrigo Duterte took the oath of the Philippines' highest office. Duterte, a former prosecutor before becoming mayor of Davao City, then delivered a short speech during the low-key ceremony in which he acknowledged that some people don't approve of his methods of fighting crime.
In response, let me say this. I have seen how corruption bled the government of funds which were allocated for the use in uplifting the poor from the mire that they are in. I have seen how illegal drugs destroy individuals and ruin family relationships.
With an absence of the trademark vulgarity of his campaign speeches, the address featured more of the no-nonsense style Duterte has ridden on his rise to the top. A sweeping anti-drug crackdown has already been launched in the country. The uncompromising stance on crime has alarmed human rights watchdogs and the Roman Catholic Church, but it's been a hit with crime-weary Filipinos. Today, hundreds of supporters gathered to remind Duterte that they expect him to keep his promises.
We are preparing for bigger struggles ahead because of the forces who will be resisting change.
Also watching closely will be the Philippines' neighbors, as well as longtime treaty ally the United States. Duterte has declared his foreign policy will not be dependent on the U.S. and has shown readiness to mend frosty ties with China. While Beijing has worked hard to repair damaged relations with Manila, the U.S. and Australia have enjoyed strong ties with the previous administration. Now they're waiting to see how a new and very different president will handle relations with them. Former London Mayor Boris Johnson announced he will not be running in the Conservative Party leadership race to replace British Prime Minister David Cameron. He was seen as favored to become Prime Minister after leading a successful campaign that saw Britain's vote to leave the European Union.
Having consulted colleagues and in view of the circumstances in Parliament, I have concluded that person cannot be me. My role will be to give every possible support to the next Conservative administration to make sure that we properly fulfil the mandate of the people that was delivered at the referendum and to champion the agenda I believe in.
First,
Interior Minister Theresa May, who announced her candidacy today, is now a front-runner. Also in the running is Justice Secretary Michael Gove. He made a surprise announcement after withdrawing his support for Boris Johnson earlier this week. Turkish authorities investigating the triple suicide bombings at Istanbul's main international airport have arrested several people in connection with the attack. The death toll has risen to 42, and the Chinese embassy in Turkey has confirmed there are no Chinese nationals among the casualties. Sonia Artero reports.
A total of 22 suspects linked to the Islamic State group were nabbed in a series of police raids in 3 different neighborhoods. Police say they found 3 hunting rifles and documents relating to the Islamic State group and the prime suspect for the attack. More videos have emerged of the immediate aftermath at Istanbul Ataturk Airport. It proves the 3 suicide attackers unleash a deadly tide of bullets and bombs. Turkish residents insist they are not safe in their own country.